So in today's video, I have a 17 elimination 4K damage gameplay that I dropped recently on stream. And we're going to be going ahead and breaking it down in an inside the mind style where I talk through my decision making, positioning, how I took fights, why I rotated, literally everything you can think of that goes into dropping 4K gameplays just like this. And so let's get right into it. So as we're dropping in, two of the initial keys you want to be thinking about when trying to drop 4Ks is your pacing and your rotations. The actual hardest part of dropping 4Ks in modern day Apex is finding enough players to get 4K damage. Now I go ahead and land on a shotgun arsenal here, and I'm gonna go ahead and miss some shots unfortunately, but watch how I'm playing this cover, ducking in and out, making sure to make that solo wraith's life very hard to deal damage back on me by kind of playing that head glitch. That's something I talk about a lot. If you're playing cover correctly, even if you're having an off day with your aim, you're still gonna be able to not take that much damage in return and therefore stay alive even if your shots aren't super locked in. And then on days that you are super locked in, it's just gonna make fights that much easier. So back to the original point I was talking about when we were dropping in, rotations and where you're landing is huge for trying to drop a 4K. So you're always going to want to drop at the hottest drop possible. This is going to change per map and usually also change based on where the drop ship goes over first. But it's also very important to know the next two spots that are going to be the hottest that you're going to want to rotate to after clearing the hot drop. Now, I get caught off guard by this altar. We go ahead and use Q to fall back to the door, and my teammates end up pushing in, so I'm able to just open the door and clean that up from a safe angle. But as I was saying, you need to know the next two spots you're going to go. So in my mind right now, obviously we still have to focus to clear out this initial hot drop, but Estates is probably going to be the next spot to go. And so I'm already in the back of my mind like, okay, as soon as we can clear this out, we're instantly going to try to take the Trident or the car and go ahead and go straight to Estates. And as you can see, we did a quick scan right there and we didn't even have anybody left. So just as I was saying, my plan is to get straight to this car, grab my teammates as fast as possible, and head over to Estates. Now, to be honest, in this particular game, I probably should have just headed over there by myself instead of waiting for my teammates because, like I said, pacing is so important. But honestly, with only 2 eliminations off drop, I really didn't expect this to turn into such a high damage and high elimination gameplay. So I wasn't in that much of a rush to the point where I was going to leave my teammates, and it ends up working out. We hit a quick R99 upgrade while we wait for our teammate, and then finally he hops in the Trident, so we're able to go ahead and head on over to Estates. And one final thing on pacing, try not to take so much time to loot. That's another big mistake I see people trying to drop high damage or high elimination gameplays, is they're taking way too much time looting boxes. Loot is nice, but at the end of the day, if you're dropping 20 eliminations or 5K damage, whatever it may be, you're going to find plenty of loot throughout the game. So try not to take as much time to loot. Now, we end up finding a team on our way over to Estates. We deal some nice initial damage. I'm going to go ahead and push up to this nice little piece of cover and try to deal some damage. But as soon as I start feeling like I'm taking any damage back, you see how I try to duck back into cover. I never want to take damage at the cost of dealing it. I always want to prioritize my own health. So whenever I start to feel like even I might start taking some, I try to duck back behind cover. Now, I go ahead and do a nice little climb up to get to this doorway. This is a spot that might catch them off guard. And also, anytime you can, you want to be playing doorway so you can quickly close the door if you start taking that damage back. Now, also notice how I'm not overcommitting to anything. I'm always trying to drop high elimination, high damage gameplays when I'm playing, but yet you still have to be pretty patient. You have to make sure that you're not throwing yourself into bad situations and overcommitting. And after getting the Octane low, I actually try to take that opportunity to focus the Wraith. I end up losing the elimination on the Octane, unfortunately. And I think so many times when people get big damage on a legend, they'll tunnel vision and only focus that specific legend. It's super important to take that opportunity while they have to fall back to cover and heal to try to isolate a different fight with their teammate, especially in 1v3s. Now, the Wraith ends up taking her portal back, so we go ahead, slide, and hit some nice initial damage here. I go for a little bit of a wall bounce to close the gap. I kind of missed that wall bounce, unfortunately. And you know, we always have to go for a little bit of a trick shot with the PK, a little 360. And we're actually able to hit it here, but that Wraith wanted out of there. She wanted nothing to do with that fight. But we clean up the elimination, and we're actually only at 3 eliminations here with 27 remaining, which means I actually end up cleaning up 14 of the last 24 available eliminations. So the rest of this gameplay is where the bulk of the fights are going to come from. It was actually a bit of a slow start for such a high elimination, high damage game. Normally you have to get off to a crazy pace, but this was just one of those lobbies that for some reason stayed alive for most of the game. That honestly doesn't happen that often in pubs. So for anybody trying to drop their first 4K or another 4K or Like I said, any type of high damage, high elimination gameplays in pubs, don't get discouraged if you're not getting the numbers that you want to, because honestly, so much of it is just getting a lobby that stays up. And so as long as you're trying to implement these things and practice them over and over and over again, eventually you'll find yourself in a game that does stay alive and you're able to get those numbers that you want. It's really just about practice and repetition of doing the right things over and over again, so that when the opportunity comes, you're already doing the right things. And so now we go ahead and make that rotate into estates. Like I said, there is a team here. We get the scan, but even if we didn't have the scan, this is exactly where I was planning on going before we ran into that team beforehand, because it's just the next hot drop on this map based on where the dropship was. So it's a little bit of an awkward start here with them being on the high ground in the middle. Kind of a tough push, but we hit a really nice 111 spray with the R99. I'm playing close to this tree for cover, so if I do start taking damage, I can just duck back behind the tree or drop down. Now I go ahead and I want to push up here. You'll see that I use a climb up instead of taking just the staircase. This could be a little bit uncommon and catch people off guard. Nobody is on the second level, but we go ahead and we're going to use a couple thermites here to try and push them off the roof because they're just sitting up there. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't land exactly where we wanted, but it ends up working out because the Octane actually drops off the roof to try and help his teammate. And so I have a nice angle to get a nice 50 damage to start the fight. Now watch how I path myself through this building to try to get behind him instead of just wrapping to the right and following his steps. We also end up getting his teammate, who was only 1 HP, so it was just one easy PK shot there. And so we're left in a 1v1 with the Ash here. Now, I do take some initial damage. I'm trying to play this doorway for cover, not overcommitting to anything. Unfortunately, I strafe out to the right way too far, and so when I go to close the door in front of me, I get caught on the other side of it. Luckily, I'm able to bail myself out with a really nice PK shot there, but that was definitely a mistake. I would have liked to see myself play more inside of the door, so when I closed it, I could have used it for cover and then reopened it to take that PK shot. But like I said, sometimes you got to bail yourself out, and we're able to do it there. So now this is going to be the point in a game where we've gotten the initial couple drop spots cleared. We have a pretty decent start going. So now what is the play if you're trying to drop a 4K? It's going to be basically to go zone or center map. And so in this case, we have a pretty decent way to go to get into the zone. It's not going to start closing for another minute 30, but still, because we're trying to drop that high damage, high elimination game, we just want to go center map, basically center zone, as fast as we can, because that's where most of the action is going to end up being. At this point in the game, all the initial fighting is over. You're just left with teams that are either A, also trying to run around and drop high damage games or high elimination games like I am, or B, teams that are going to look to just get into the zone, you know, hold down a building and try to really get the win by playing a bit more passive. So either way, you really just at this point want to get as center zone as possible, so whenever you hear shots, you're able to run towards them in third party, because predicting where enemies are going to be is a little bit tougher at this point. Like I said, you don't have the initial drop spot predictability. So third partying, when you hear those shots start to go off, is going to be really crucial. Now, I go ahead and rotate over to this evac tower. This is actually a new tower that they added in Season 27, and this is really, really good because it actually allows you to get over this wall. So you don't actually have to rotate through that awkward kind of tunnel area where it's really easy to get caught off guard. You can just go ahead and take this evac tower and fly right over top, which I really prefer. And also it does allow you, if there are teams in that tunnel area, to just pinch them from the outside, which is going to be a much better position to be. Now, which was super nice about this game is one of my random teammates ended up being able to scan beacons so we can get that info. Now, unfortunately, a team was either hiding or just rotated into Hammond Labs as I left that area, and my teammates actually get caught there. But with the info that we got, I actually saw there is a full team of 3 on me. And so we're going to go ahead and try to 1v3 these guys. Now, I had that info from the scan, so I was able to go ahead and quickly isolate the first 1v1, making it a 1v2. I then go ahead and drop to a door. Like I said, these doorway areas are going to be your best friend while trying to 1v3. Wasted a little bit of time there. I should have popped the bat. I probably would have got it off. I accidentally popped a cell. But we go ahead and use our Q on Wraith, which I like to call the panic button. When you're in a situation you don't want to be in, you just go ahead and use it. Now, this is going to be a bit of an awkward fight. I have 2 on my door. They also could have rezzed at this point because they have a Mirage. I go ahead and I'm going to use Wraith's ultimate here to try to reposition with some speed. Now, the Mirage ended up being down low. I thought that was one of his clones that he spawned in. So we go ahead, we pop Q again to avoid taking damage and use a couple mantle boosts to create a little bit extra space. Now I hit a really nice R99 spray on the Wraith right there to crack her. And so we're going to go back to that Octane pad that we originally hit and almost get in this doorway using some nice movement. We still end up catching the Mirage, who was a little bit confused, and then hit a nice one clip on the Wraith. And trust me, I totally know that that was not the greatest team or the greatest players, but still the fundamental ideas that I used for that 1v3, isolating each fight, creating space to draw them into chasing me and buying myself time to heal, and then using cover correctly to get that initial damage to then re-enter the fight while they have to heal and they can't shoot at me, to then close the gap and then use that PK and R9 aim up close, are all fundamental ideas that even on better teams you can apply and pull off 1v3s just like that. Now I accidentally end up running into a whole nother team that I didn't even know was here. We use cover to get some nice initial damage, but I kind of get surrounded, so I go ahead and use my Q ability to again fall back. Now we get caught in an awkward spot where I don't have a Q to get out of that like I normally would have wanted to, but we quickly duck back to this little desk in the building, use it as a head glitch, and deal some nice damage, kind of pushing the Pathfinder back. Now again, this is a situation where I don't know really what's going on. If there's one team or two teams, it's a little bit awkward. So this is a perfect time to go ahead and use your Wraith portal to create some space. That portal is going to allow me to re-enter the fight when I'm fully healed or I feel comfortable. And if I get in trouble, I have a quick way that I can get out. So watch how I'm playing around the portal. If we take any type of damage or we need to get out, we can just instantly hit it. But right now, we have full health. We get that nice initial knock. And we'll go ahead and try to push this caustic. At the time, I could not believe that this guy didn't go down. I thought he for sure would have went down, but we get him 1 HP. And just like I said, that was the perfect opportunity right there to go ahead, fall back to the portal I had originally placed using my Q ability. We also throw a thermite on the ground after we take it so that if for some reason they did try to chase me, they would get hit with that thermite while trying to push to me. The thermite ends up running out right as they do push, unfortunately, but we still are ready for the push just in case. I would have loved to chase using the portal because he was weak and I was basically full HP, but unfortunately the portal just ran out, so we have to go ahead and run over here to the right. Now I'm still making sure as I'm crossing this open area to have some type of a piece of cover just in case somebody spots me. And I go ahead and I see my teammate use a Sparrow ult, so I'm going to try to be aggressive and play off of that. But I'm realizing as I push up here that there's nobody left in this initial area. They actually got third-partied out in the open. And this is a great opportunity for me to try to deal some damage safely from range. Unfortunately, running R99 PK is not the greatest in this situation. This is one of the few situations that, even though I play a very up-close aggressive playstyle, having a long-range option right here would have been great. We probably would have cleaned up another couple eliminations. But I'm actually able to just cross here and follow this Pathfinder up his ult. And I know he was 1 HP. Maybe he just gave up because he was such low HP. I honestly have no idea what that guy was doing. But he was low anyway, so we're able to take the ult up and get that elimination. Now, I see this other team that just revived start to try to push up this hill towards me. And then I actually get caught off guard, taking some damage from a team that's either a different team or their teammates already up top. But I quickly fall back, and I know that I have an armor swap on that Pathfinder box. So I grab that armor swap. We only have to pop one quick heal, and we're good to go back in the fight. This is a bit of an awkward fight, though, because I have a nice piece of cover, but we have a team down low to my left, probably a different team up top to my right. And so all I'm going to want to do here is kind of reposition towards the zone that they're all going to have to rotate into. So I go ahead, use the Pathfinder ult and my Q ability to again fully reposition into the zone, or in a position where I can hold these teams that I know have to rotate into the zone. And as I'm doing that, a team actually ends up respawning their teammate right in front of us. So we're going to be able to go ahead and try to clean this team wipe up fast to then hold those other two teams. I push up to a nice piece of cover and hit some nice initial damage. And then I climb up to try to use it as a bit of a head glitch to make myself harder to hit while dealing damage, while also changing the angle so I'm not just peeking the same angle over and over again. But they end up falling back, and I hear a team fly in that used an evac tower. So now this changes the situation. Instead of being a quick team wipe on a team that just respawned back in, now we have to go ahead and try to cross this area without getting shot at, and then look to third party. So I go ahead, I'm going to play this nice little staircase as a head glitch. I end up catching this guy while he's getting shot at by a different team. He's in a very tough position. So I'm going to go ahead and push in on this to try to clean up the elimination and then queue out if I get into any type of trouble. Now, I had thought it was just a solo Revenant. It actually ends up being a full team of 3 playing right there, and they go ahead and pop Lifeline ult, so gets a little bit scary. Like I said, I already knew in the back of my mind if I got in trouble, I would just use my Q ability to reposition. So we go ahead and do exactly that. And then there ends up actually being another team behind us that rotated in. I get the Bloodhound on scan here, so I quickly jump up. He ends up being 1 HP, so we get a free elimination right there. And what I want to do is try to wipe these teams to our left above us so that we can just focus this team on the other side trying to rotate in. Now, in the moment, I actually thought that there was 2 teams playing up here, but it's actually just 1 team that was playing these boxes. One of them got knocked to the team behind me with the bow, and I'm able to push in and clean up the other elimination, but unfortunately, that same team behind hits me with a bow shot, and I end up going down here. Now, luckily, there was no other team in the tunnel, so I'm able to just kind of crawl over to a safe spot away from that team, and my teammates are going to be able to come over and get the revive off on me. Now, I'm not sure why that team behind with the bow didn't actually play more aggressive and push in. They should have really pushed off of that knock, but luckily they didn't, so we're able to get a reset, and I'm going to pop a Phoenix kit here to get back to full HP. Now, right now, what I'm really thinking about is how there's 2 squads left, and I'm not sure where the other one is. We know the one squad is behind us, the bow team, but I'm really not sure where the other one is or how many are left on that team. So what we're going to try to do is play this nice little high ground platform area we have and take out this first team that was behind us with the bow. Now, we hit a really nice R99 spray to start this fight off on the Ashe, but unfortunately, I take some big damage back in return, so I'm not able to go ahead and actually capitalize off of it to push in on top of them. But I go ahead, hit some quick heals, and we're going to try to find this nice little head glitch on these barrels, and I'm able to actually isolate that Loba and get some nice damage off on her. We then go ahead and drop on the Ashe after getting her low, missing a few shots there, but for the most part, pretty clean. And we are able to drop down with the PK and clean up that final elimination on that team. And now instantly what I'm thinking about, even though I'm looting, in the back of my head as I'm doing it, we're just trying to think where this last team could be. At this point, I really thought that it was basically just a solo player hiding somewhere, so that's why I was going for a little bit of a portal play for fun. But it ends up being multiple guys playing behind these boxes. We hit another really nice initial spray with my teammates applying pressure. I know that I can push these boxes because they're going to be worried about my teammates' angles. And we go ahead and do that, and with some nice clean R99 and PK shots, we're able to clean up the last 2 eliminations. And I think this gameplay also does a great job at showing how important it is to make it to the mid and late game in these high elimination, high damage games. So many people try to push the pace so much that they take fights incorrectly in the early game, and it ends up costing them, where if they just made it to the mid or late game, they'd be able to drop some crazy gameplays like this. Like I said, I do stream every single day over on my Twitch, so if you want to see games like this live, I'm live over there every day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Peace.